Hi there, Islam Debate. Brian from a nondescript little city in the southwestern part of the United States. Thank you for your response to my video. I posted the original video in the comments so that people could go back and hear. I will acknowledge one mistake. I did say that Jesus put himself on the cross. I misspoke. I misspoke badly. My hit. So you caught me on one. Thank you. I appreciate you pointing out my mistakes as well. Let's talk about the sayings of the prophet. Are the hadiths not the sayings of the prophet? If they are not, what are the sayings of the prophet that I need to go to correctly interpret the Quran? I'm confused. Differences amongst Christians. We all agree that Jesus Christ is the Messiah, the Son of God, fully man, fully God. Google the hypostatic union. About this, Christians make no mistakes. We don't, that's not what we teach. That's not what Christianity teaches. Please learn about my faith before you criticize it. Allah has a name which is the loving. One of his 99 names, eternal attributes, the loving. You didn't answer that point very well by saying that because he has a loving nature. How do you know he has a loving nature if he can't express it? If he's a Unitarian being, he cannot express that loving nature. Point still not made. Self-love is possible, yeah. That's one of the three forms. You got self-love, reciprocal love, shared love. I don't have time to go into all three of those. But that only leaves Allah able to express one form of perfect love, meaning that Allah is not perfect love. That's a real tension that you need to address. Also, nowhere in the Quran does it specifically say that Allah is love. The Bible, the New Testament specifically, is rife with expressions. God is love. Over and over again, laboriously. God is love. 1 Corinthians 13, the whole chapter will definitely answer that question for you. Since God is perfect love, he has no need to forgive himself. One part doesn't have to forgive the other part. He has to forgive us as human beings because we're imperfect. So that kind of blows your second point out of the water as well. Cite your geologist that says that a mountain has roots. If it were to stabilize the crust, as expressed in that one tiny section of a passage from the Quran, the roots would have to extend down into the mantle of the earth. That would stabilize the crust. That would stop tectonic plate activity. I don't think you can cite a geologist, geophysicist, any scientist that would make that claim. As far as the name of what the pharaohs were called, whether it was Pharaoh or Pharaon or whatnot, in the Quran, you refer to Potiphar, who was a pharaoh or a pharaon, as El-Aziz. So that point isn't made either, because the Quran also gets that wrong by your definition. I didn't say the Quran was from the Bible. I did not say that. You extrapolated that from my sayings, from what I said, which is why I posted the original video right there. It comes from Jewish Talmudic writings, Syriac writings, from Syria, poetry of the time of the Quran was extant. There are also quotations from Gnostic Gospels. The story of Jesus breathing on the clay birds that he had fashioned and them springing to life is drawn directly from the Gospel of Thomas of the infancy of Jesus. That is a forgery, has been proven so. You need to cite your your passage in the Bible that says that the sky is held aloft by 5 pillars. I need to see that from the Bible. We'll see if your biblical exegesis is correct. Noah's Ark, the location, is truly peripheral matter. It's mentioned in both the Bible and the Quran. I'm not even going to go into that. One of the names of God, the eternal attributes. Another one is El-Mufil, he who leads astray. I don't want to worship a God who might lead me astray. That flies in the face of the definition of God being perfect love, which is established in the New Testament. The anger of God, let's address that. You specifically mentioned Numbers 31. If you've done any study of the Canaanite culture, of the culture of the Canaanites, they engaged in Baal worship. Do you know what Baal worship involves? It involves temple prostitution, human sacrifice. Ugh. Maybe God was being merciful in telling Moses to kill everybody, man, woman, and child. You know, maybe that was merciful. I wouldn't want to raise a family in a culture like that. Ugh. You say that God lies to us in the Old Testament. Read those passages. Read them in context. God is actually quoting a false prophet or other false prophets that were extant, specifically in Jeremiah, that were extant in the time of Jeremiah. There was a lot of false prophets hanging out and going hither and yon and, you know, getting angry at God because God lied to us. You know, God is actually addressing those and quoting their words. So you took that passage, those passages, pretty far out of context. Try again, please. And to see the anger of the God in the Bible, and this is my final word on that subject, compare the expressed actions of Jesus with the expressed actions of Muhammad. Who killed the Jews in the War of the Trenches? Who personally cut off the heads of the Jews in the War of the Trenches? Muhammad did. Muhammad needs to be forgiven. He acknowledges this in the Quran. In Surah 19, Ayah 19, Jesus is acknowledged as sinless. As far as Allah being my friend, you need to cite the Quran, please. I need to know where that comes up. I mentioned jihad as an example of dichotomy within Islam. I didn't say that there are two groups of Muslims. Thanks for miscategorizing what I said. Reread Surah 8, Ayah 61. Reread the whole passage. You extracted the last sentence. Reread it and see what you think. I already said that the mistake that I made was Jesus put himself on the cross. He did not. I made a mistake. And prove to me from the Bible, from the Torah, that Abraham was a Muslim. I don't think you can. I don't think you can do it. Finally, I won't debate you. Why? Because my purpose isn't to prove myself right or to demonstrate the superiority of Christianity. I can't do that on my own. And how dare Allah ask you to do that on your own? Jiminy Christmas. If Allah is God, wouldn't his Quran be able to speak for itself? The Quran can't. We need the sayings of the Prophet. We need all of these other peripheral works in order to correctly, quote, correctly and rightly interpret the word of Allah, which is the Quran. I can pick up a Bible, start reading anywhere I like, in any language I like, and I don't need anybody to tell me how to interpret it. If I read it like it's literature, if I use the rules of context and look out for the intent of the author, the Bible was written under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, under the inspiration of God by humans. Biblical inerrancy, holding to biblical inerrancy is not necessary to become a Christian. You simply need to acknowledge that Jesus is God and to submit to his teachings, to his perfect love. Reread the New Testament, please, and you'll find out what that love is. Brian, from a nondescript little city in the southwestern part of the United States, signing off.